It was the same monster, and he came with a white flag. He came with peaceful intentions. He wants to see the Empress of the Jade Goddess clan. He was outside the camp. The girls were standing on a rock, and Shonen thought it was strange and asked if the aliens really wanted to beg for mercy. The Empress noted that they were scared by Zhang Lang and might have thought that they had invented an artifact that could withstand their spells. Shonen should take the monster to the camp and call Zhang Lan, and she agreed. After that, he was in the main hall, and Kingling shouted that he dared to come to their camp alone and asked if he wanted to destroy the core of the guardian spirit. The monster started to panic and replied that it was all a misunderstanding. They once insulted the Jade Goddess clan. He asks to forgive their mistakes and spare their clan. Outside the camp there are 30 wagons with blue crystals, which are a piece of his family's heart. He also asks the Empress to accept them. Shonen thought that the blue crystal is a rare ore that is native to an alien race. It is very useful for cultivation. The entire Jade Goddess clan only has a few pounds of this ore. The aliens really sent so many. It's a lot of money, and the Empress was thinking. The protagonist immediately appeared and thought that he wanted to buy his life for this piece of garbage. He asked if he really thought they were that poor. Kingling was surprised, because after she pumped him with a special fragrance, he had to sleep at least until tomorrow. She did not understand why he woke up quickly and assumed that he had not slept at all. The protagonist went ahead and said that if they want to survive, they must first expose the person behind all these. Also, tell them clearly how the alien team that tried to kill the Empress bypassed Ling Feng. The monster began to panic. Xiaoning was surprised and thought that Zhang was right. These are the most important issues for the Jade Goddess clan. She was almost fascinated by the blue crystals and found Zhang Lan to be very reserved. The monster said in a panic that he only knew that this man called himself Min, and he never revealed his true identity, nor did he talk about his identity and origin. He led them in search of a secret road 30 miles west of Lingfeng Gorge, along which they were able to pass through the Longmen Mountains. The protagonist put a finger with a fireball to his head and asked where he was now. The monster replied that when Zhang came to rescue Kingling, he immediately disappeared. He did not know where he had gone. The protagonist asked if he was a man or a woman. The monster replied in a panic that it was a man, and he was sure of it. Zhang Lan thought about it. Then the possibility of traitors appearing in the Jade Goddess clan could be ruled out. He wondered who it could be. After that, Xiaoning and the Empress discussed Zhang Lan and said that he was really talented. Since the alien race did not give out the mine, he blackmailed 10 more wagons of blue crystals. When Kingling destroys the secret path and returns, they must give them a decent reward, and we can return to the clan. Immediately, Xiaoning said that there was good news. Zhang Lan cured Kingling's attraction. She asked if she noticed how Kingling was looking at Zhang Lan. She didn't want to kill him at all, but instead to do something else. Immediately, the Empress looked back with a slightly malicious look. The Empress turned away, and Xiaoning was confused and did not understand what she had said wrong, and why she suddenly turned around. After that, they show us the training room. The protagonist was lying on the rocks and did not know if this blue crystal could help in cultivation. He just wanted to help them lure out 10 more carts, but they were so happy that they were speechless. He really doesn't understand these cultivators. The system informed them that it would give them the task for entry number 7. The purpose of the task: to force the next person who enters the training room to put on an old uniform. The uniform was placed in storage. Time requirement: within 3 days. Completion reward: unknown. Punishment: death by lightning strike. The protagonist thought it would be fun this time. The protagonist felt that someone was coming towards him and wondered what kind of little cutie it would be. It was Ikai who entered the room. Zhang Lan thought it would be a piece of cake. She can't see anything anyway, so he'll just find a reason to trick her into wearing it. The girl sat down and began to undress, and the protagonist was shocked and covered his bottom. The protagonist realized that now that it had come to this, no matter what, he couldn't let her know that he was here, otherwise he was finished. He hadn't expected this at all. The protagonist began to panic and decided to escape before she noticed. Immediately, the girl heard a sound and lifted the bandage from her ear a little. She used her power from her finger and asked who was here, but the protagonist managed to dodge. Zhang felt that this girl was too fierce. He can't move. Even if he dies, she shouldn't see him. She thought it was her imagination and continued to take off the blindfold. And the protagonist was just shocked. Her eyes were very shiny and white. Looking at her, the protagonist was surprised and did not understand. She really did not see at all. Such beautiful eyes, and he was sorry. The Empress entered the tent and asked Ikai to come out for a while. The girl turned around and was surprised. Ikai quickly dressed and agreed with the master. And the protagonist turned to the wall and asked the Empress not to look at him. Ikai left. The Empress went to the protagonist, and he, in turn, crept to the exit. She was a little angry and said that even though Ikai looks harmless, she cultivates the unity of heart and sword. The sword that dominates the world. If he dares to provoke her again, he must not think that she will be able to save him. The protagonist didn't know what to say. Then she sat down and asked him to sit next to her, because she needed to know something about his opinion, and the protagonist was delighted. After that, she told him that he should also know that the Jade Goddess clan is one of the 6 clans. Since most of the members of her sect are women, the other 5 sects often harass them. News has just arrived that the annual Martial Arts Improvement Conference of the 6 clans will be held in 3 days. This is an opportunity for the outstanding students of each clan to learn from each other, as well as an occasion to test the strength of each clan. He was also punished for peeping and hit on the head. But now all the best students are either in seclusion or guarding the clan, and only Ikai and Chichui's student will be able to participate. The Jade Goddess clan has been at the bottom of the rankings for 3 years in a row, and it will be unpleasant if it happens again this year. She is afraid that they are about to drop out of the list of 6 clans. The protagonist asked, "Isn't it unnecessary to put the 3 best students in the guard? She can take one of them with her." She replied that he would understand when he saw them in the future that they were not easy to take away from the mountain gate. The conference was suddenly postponed, and she can't wait for the senior student to finish her seclusion. After thinking about it, she is afraid that there is only one solution. After that, we are shown the top of the Lingyun clan. The protagonist disguised himself as a girl, and someone noted that the Jade Goddess clan master Zheng Xuaniao. Participating students Yichai, Zhang Lan, and Zhao Tichui arrived. The head noted that Xuaniao is here and she can sit down. A girl from this temple showed them their seats and asked them to sit down and laughed. Xuaniao and Tekui began to get angry. The latter shouted and asked what it all meant. He makes them sit in a corner, and they also put up a broken table. The protagonist intervened and said that he had long heard that the Lingyun clan's finances were limited. They had some difficulties. They really look poor. Fortunately, they brought their own tables and chairs so they can all sit down. The protagonist spent points on the presidential luxury table, and the head was surprised. The protagonist pulled back a chair and asked the Empress to sit down. Initially, the enemy clans wanted to disgrace the Jade Goddess clan, but they got dirty in the shit. The guy stood up and shouted that they shouldn't be sitting there. The head replied that everything was fine, and he could just ignore them. He didn't care how happy they were tonight. It was just a bluff. When the competition starts tomorrow, there will be a good show. After that, the morning came and the conference on improving the martial arts of the 6 clans begins. They show us a martial arts field. In the first round, the Wangxingzong clan will fight the Jade Goddess clan. A disciple of the Wangxingzong clan, Lin Qingyun, and a disciple of the Jade Goddess clan, Ikai. The head asked Xuaniao that this Zhang Lan was only here to replace another student. If they can't send a decent student, then they could just refrain. He didn't understand why bother fighting when they were going to lose. Lin and Ikai were already facing each other. The judge added that the winner of this round automatically moves on to the next round. Until all 3 of the same clan lose, the battle will not end. They need to improve and learn from each other, not harm anyone's life, and they can start. The protagonist was surprised that Lin was fighting in armor, because this opponent's position is too unequal. Tekui replied that they practice cruel and unusual foreign kung fu. Compared to them, their advantages cannot be fully exploited. Ikai immediately released her power into him right from her fingers. Lin deftly dodged the best girl. And Tekui added that they said that the rivals are determined by lot, but they fight the Wangxingzong clan every year, and asked if he thought it was strange. The protagonist noted that even such a ferocious sword aura could not penetrate this armor. Tekui said that all their armor is made of high-quality ore. She can't directly attack him in the head. It really makes it harder to win. Lin tried to hit her, but Ikai dodged. She immediately started attacking him and added that aiming at the same point and continuous attacks, no matter how strong the armor was, he could still be defeated. It seems to her that Ikai has come up with a way to restrain the enemy. Immediately, Ikai began to feel dizzy. Tekui realized that her rivals were using vertigo stones to interfere with Ikai's hearing. Lin hit Ikai right in the face and she flew backwards. She flew out of the arena and ran towards her sister. The head said that there is no chance of losing here and that the Wangxingzong clan wins in the first round. Lin asked who was next and quickly. Tekui was very angry and the second round began. She decided to do it and rushed forward. She shouted that in order to win, they were using insidious methods. Lin, dodging her hammer, said that with such skills, he asked if the Jade Goddess clan should still be among the 6 clans. He's ashamed of her. She was just furious with his words and told him not to dare to say such a thing. She hit him with all her might, but he decided to take the hit. The hammer immediately began to crack. A moment later, the hammer collapsed and the girl flew up. Ikai had already regained consciousness and only managed to shout the name of Tekui. The judge said that the Jade Goddess clan had lost 2 rounds in a row and asked if they wanted to continue. And Ikai was very angry. Zhang told Yichai to take the flow down and rest, and leave the rest to him. The head started to get angry and said that he was suggesting that they refrain and save the Jade Goddess clan from further disgrace. One of his students defeated them all. It would be too embarrassing if this spread. Lin said that a nobody like him shouldn't impose his presence. Also, so that he doesn't think he can win with a little ingenuity like yesterday. He must bow down and get out of here, otherwise he will destroy it with his steel fist. The protagonist noted that he was so funny, because he added a strengthening talisman to his hand. Being a bitch and putting on airs is so shameless. Lin got angry and rushed forward, telling him to shut up, because he was finished. The head asked Lin not to finish too quickly, because he had to save the Jade Goddess clan from further ridicule. The protagonist immediately hit Lin and he flew up. Zhang told her to stop bragging, because he hadn't lost yet. The Supreme God was here, and he asked who would dare to act rashly. And the head's face changed to the dog's face, which was shocked. The head did not understand how this was possible, because Lin Qingyun, the best disciple of the Wangxingzong clan, could not fight back against the girl. He asked if the Jade Goddess clan really had such a cruel cultivation technique. The protagonist noted that he took him down with one punch and it was too cool. The system reported that there were 2/3 remaining glove uses. The head was angry and shouted that Lin was an idiot, because he relaxed after winning 2 rounds and Qin Fu should follow. Qin Fu from the Wangxingzong clan jumped onto the field. He was here, the consummate Qin Fu, the invincible Hot Wheel. The most terrible thing about this movement is that it concentrates all the power in the arms and legs. Combined with its extremely high speed, it can be called a deadly weapon. Qin Fu once used this technique to break through 100 miles of alien races and kill countless enemies. No one knew how Zhang Lan would handle him. The protagonist just hit again and Qin Fu flew up. Zhang noted that the technique is good, but some other time. The Empress laughed sweetly and apologized, because her student is a little cruel, and the head shouted for Siluo to kick his ass. The fat man noted that Zhang is really capable, and his punches are so strong that it is really difficult for ordinary students to resist. But he is sorry that he met him. Another head was surprised when he saw the undefeated golden boy Siluo. The head of the Wangxingzong clan agreed. The invincible kung fu of the golden body of Siluo is unique, and even he is not sure that he can defeat him when he defends with all his might. Siluo growled and used the force. The head thought it was great. As long as they had Siluo, the Wangxingzong clan would be invincible. The protagonist hit the fat man and was surprised that it didn't work and didn't understand if such a technique actually exists. The head and the fat man laughed, and the old man said that his attacks were useless. Immediately, Siluo began to shake and he spat out a lot of blood and lost all his health. He fell to the floor and trembled, and the protagonist turned around and asked if he had won, and the judge agreed. The Jade Goddess clan wins the first battle. The head seemed to faint from all this. In the second battle, the Lizong clan will come together against the Xuanjian clan. After that, the protagonist was in the guest bedroom and noted that the watermelons were very heavy and he did not understand how these busty girls survived. Immediately, a girl looked into the protagonist's room and called Zhang. It was Tekui who put on tights and asked what he thought of her improved tights. The protagonist blushed and replied that it was very good. Zhang noted that the energy changes there seemed so familiar. He thought of something. Tekui said that they had successfully moved forward thanks to his hard work. Tonight he can rest as much as he wants. When she turned around, she saw that the protagonist was missing. After that, they show us the Empress's room. The protagonist realized that it had happened again, in the territory of the Lingyang clan. He knew that it would be unpleasant if they found out, so he would have to act, and he blushed. The protagonist came up to her and the girl grabbed him and asked him to hold her tighter. Zhang couldn't help himself and said she could do whatever she wanted. He asked the system to act. Zhang asked why the Empress was so dependent on him after she was put under a spell, and he suggested that the divine body could neutralize her pain. The goddess asked for time to stretch. After she agreed, the power of the Jade Goddess cultivated by the Empress is an ancient divine art. It is charming. If you are careless, its skills may be lost. In the worst case, its body will be destroyed. The protagonist asked what he could do to help her. Is there any panacea that can be exchanged for points? The goddess replied that if he wanted to save her, it was very simple, and he didn't need anything to do it. The divine body contains a lot of yang, and the power of the Jade Goddess contains a lot of yin. If he wants to completely heal the damage caused to her by the power of the Jade Goddess and help her overcome it, there's only one way. He would have to do double cultivation with her, which shocked him. The system asked him if he had made a decision. Only double cultivation could save her. If he hesitated, she might die. The protagonist took the Empress in his arms and went forward. He carefully placed her on the bed, and the system noted that he had made the right decision. She decided to provide him with technical support. She wanted to say something to him, but the protagonist had already started doing it, and the system was surprised and asked what he was doing. Zhang said that although he was not a righteous man, men should not take advantage of others. Since the biggest danger is the golden core, he will fix it. The system was surprised by his words and noted that after that his strength would be exhausted. Once the divine body is exhausted, it will take at least 12 hours to recover. During this time, he won't be able to do anything. So how will he participate in tomorrow's competition? After it was over, Xuanyao woke up and was even surprised that she was still alive. She didn't understand why her damaged golden core had also recovered and assumed that it was the protagonist who helped her again. At that time, Zhang was already behind his room. He asked the system why it didn't mention that the cost of energy depletion is kidney pain. The goddess replied that he deserved it. Such a beautiful woman was sent to his doorstep, but he did not want it and called him an idiot. The protagonist noted that he had done nothing and asked why she was angry. He thought she had some indescribable fetishes and liked to watch others. The goddess replied in denial and assured that she did not have any fetishes. He was talking nonsense and she would ignore him. When he entered the room, he thought that there was definitely something wrong with this system. She was tempted to all kinds of uniforms and she always wanted to drive him into different situations. Ikai was sitting inside his room, who immediately asked where he had been. The protagonist replied that he had a stomachache and went to the toilet. He asked why she was looking for him. The girl got up and went straight to him, saying that he had worked hard today, and thanks to him they had succeeded. She just came to remind him that tomorrow's final would consist of 3 melee matches. They are definitely in the spotlight. He must do everything in his power, but ensuring his own safety is a top priority. The protagonist agreed with her. He was surprised, because Ikai was asking him to fight for the honor of the clan, but reminded him that safety is above all. She immediately asked him to wait a minute. She turned around and asked why his body odor was so familiar. Zhang started to panic and replied that maybe it was the incense used in the bathroom. He also understood that this was bad, because it was the fragrance of the Empress. The protagonist tried to move away and stumbled and fell to the floor. She approached him and asked him not to move, because it was so familiar, as if she had felt this smell for 3 long years. She started sniffing him and the protagonist realized that he had to quickly change the subject. The girl began to untangle her ribbon and added that she hoped he could really help her. The protagonist was surprised, because he was just joking, and then the hedgehog blushed. They show us the beautiful Ikai without a bandage again, and Zhang replied that there was no problem with that. After that, the protagonist told her to look up and left, but she didn't see anything. She closed one eye and said she couldn't see anything anyway. The protagonist stood at the sign and realized that she was not blind. She just has high-level myopia. Ikai came closer to the board and began to see something. The protagonist asked the system if it had glasses for Ikai. He will spend a few points to buy them. The goddess clearly replied in denial, but Zhang realized that she was still angry. The feelings of this system are too realistic. The protagonist said that he was very sorry, because he was going to cure her eyes first, and then ask her to put on a uniform. Since the goddess said no, she will have to wear it blindfolded, which is a pity, she has such beautiful eyes. Immediately, the system asked him to wait and after a moment gave him the glasses. He understood that even though this system is a woman, it looks like a perverted old man. When he knows what she likes, he can easily negotiate with her. The protagonist said that he was going to put something on her and asked her not to move, and Ikai was surprised. After that, he smiled broadly and asked how she saw. The girl was shocked and blushed from what she saw. She thought it was amazing and did not understand how he did it. Zhang replied with his nose in the air that it was nonsense, because she said that he worked miracles. If she wore them tomorrow, she would definitely catch them off guard. She bowed to him and said that she appreciated it very much. She didn't even know how to thank him. The protagonist asked her if she could do him a favor and she was surprised. He handed her the clothes and asked if she could wear this outfit. Ikai took it and pointed with her finger, saying that it was a very strange style, and asked why she had to wear it. The protagonist came up with the idea that he bought it for his girlfriend and does not know if it will fit her, so he wants to see how it sits on her. They just have the same size. The girl smiled and replied that he should wait a minute. She would change into a suit right now. Some time later, the protagonist sat and thought that now with his eyesight restored, Ikai is a rare weapon. In tomorrow's final, she should be able to destroy the lineup of the opponents. He will spend a few points on some things, which should be enough until his body recovers. Immediately, Ikai said that she was done and the protagonist turned around in anticipation. Ikai appears in front of us in an office suit. She asked if Zhang is sure that they have the same size, because this outfit is too small. The protagonist replied that the costume is not small and looks cute. The system immediately informed him that the body was still in a cooling state. Energy could not be stored, and in order to ensure Zhang's safety, he was being removed and his nose was bleeding. The girl ran to him and asked what was wrong with him. He panicked a lot when she was running towards him and her balls were jumping. Then the girl stepped on an uneven board. She immediately fell right on top of the protagonist and he asked her not to approach. After that, the protagonist sat down on a chair and looked at the girl strangely. The girl really apologizes to him. She tripped and fell. She didn't want to hurt him. She bent down and asked me to ask her. The protagonist replied that everything was fine and the apology was accepted, and also suggested that she discuss tactics for tomorrow. He understood that for some reason his cultivation base had been lost, and he would not be able to recover until tomorrow. so it depends on her and Tichui. The girl bent down and apologized. She did not expect that the fall would lead to such consequences. Her shirt tore and the protagonist got very excited and asked her to stop bowing. He decided to put a blindfold over his eyes so as not to see her and said that the final would be between the 3 teams that won today. They will definitely put them first. She and Tichui can try to delay time as much as possible. And if they can hold out until he recovers his cultivation base, they will definitely win. She said she would come back and discuss it with Tichui. She would do her best and added that this dress was torn. The protagonist replied that it didn't matter. He had a couple more sets. She should just go and find Tichui and discuss tactics with her. Ikai agreed and decided to leave. And the protagonist said that they would see each other tomorrow. As she left, she wondered if all men looked like that and noted that he was quite handsome. Immediately, she corrected herself, because she is the one who devoted herself to cultivation, but she had such obscene thoughts. The protagonist was glad that it was finally over. If she hadn't left, he would have bled to death and asked the system to exit. The system congratulated Zhang on completing the 7th task and he will receive a reward for it. The protagonist asked her to wait a minute. Zhang asked if he could exchange this reward for points. The system asked if he was sure, because all the rewards are rare equipment, and points can only be exchanged for common items. The exchange for points is impractical from the point of view of benefits. The protagonist smiled and said that then she could give him more points. Next time he would try to create more advantages and asked what she thought. The girl began to get a little angry and replied that she was not interested in benefits. Rewards could be exchanged for 39.99 points, and if there was no objection, she would transfer them to his account. He had 360 points and also transferred 39.99. The protagonist replied that there were no problems and she could continue. In total, he got 4,359 points. The protagonist said that he was going to trade them for something for tomorrow's competition, and asked if she had any useful weapons. For example, 98 Kelvin, M416, Italian pistols or something like that. The system agreed. It also has sniper rifles, exoskeleton armor and new generation individual nuclear weapons. She asked him if he needed them. The protagonist replied that if she had said earlier, he would have ruled the world with these things a long time ago. The system shouted at him not to even think about it. This is not the era of firearms. She asked if he was crazy or drunk. The protagonist asked if she didn't have it, so why was she shouting so loudly, and what could he trade for? The girl decided to show him and started creating everything. A moment later, a bunch of different weapons from the goddess appeared. Looking at this, Zhang said it wasn't a bad thing. After that, the next day came and the judge said that the finals of the martial arts improvement of the 6 sects were about to begin. The participating disciples of Lingyun sect, Xuanjian sect and Jade Goddess sect are invited to the stage. The participating Lingyun sect disciples will be led by Qinyun, a talent that has never been encountered in thousands of years, known as the Gentleman Lingyuan Sword. He is the favorite to win this year's championship. Xuanjian also sent the strongest members of his clan. The Night Owl claims to be able to chop off the head of an enemy general among thousands of soldiers. He can be described as a bloodthirsty beast. The judge also invited everyone to take a look at the participating disciples of the Jade Goddess sect. But everyone was surprised, because the protagonist was eating at that time and offered the others a snack, which made the girls a little embarrassed. The judge thought they were still having breakfast. Sect Master Xuazjian started laughing loudly and thought that Zhang Lan was completely stupid. She was still eating pancakes at this time. Another head asked Linson not to forget how 3 of her students were defeated by her punch yesterday. You should never underestimate an opponent. Another head said that the Jade Goddess sect should never be allowed to show off again. If this gets out, none of their 5 clans will be able to show up publicly. The third one asked him not to worry, because this is the end of their luck. The Empress understood that the Linyuan and Xuanjian clans would definitely join forces to attack Zhang Lan and the others. But she did not understand why Zhang Lan was so calm and whether he had any plan. A judge appeared above the ring and said that this final was a 3-way melee involving 9 people. And there are no other restrictions except that no one's life could be harmed. Those who surrender or lose consciousness are considered eliminated, and the last clan left on the field is the final winner. He asked, they figured it out, and everyone unanimously agreed with the judge. He added that there are 90 minutes until the end and the final begins. The Xuanjian clan ran forward and Kaizai told his brothers to go ahead. The protagonist began to shout that the girls had already turned around. Kai realized that something was wrong again. Tekui asked what was the matter. The protagonist explained that he can only strike 3 times a day, but today they have 6 enemies. He didn't know which of them would get in their way first. The Xuanjian clan realized that such a terrifying strike could only be used 3 times a day, although they had discussed victory tactics with the Lingyun clan last night. But since he could only strike 3 times, Kai wondered why they should attack first and smiled maliciously. Qinyun was angry, and Hu Wang shouted that Kaizai was a bastard and chickened out. Ken asked if he wanted to force them to make the first move. If the enemy didn't move, they would too. It had already been 30 minutes, but no one moved and everyone did not understand why everyone was standing and thought that they might be looking for the enemy's weaknesses. Linson got very angry and asked what they were doing. They should go ahead and fight. Wudong noted that the clan master was angry and asked what to do. Kaizai replied that so that he wouldn't worry about him, they needed to see what the Lingyun clan would do. Wait a bit, if they go first, they'll end up badly. The protagonist was lying on the floor and thinking that there was still an hour left until 12 o'clock. If he could be pulled, then they would definitely be the winners. Immediately, Ikai shouted for them to be careful and the protagonist got up. Ikai dodged, and Tekui began to maneuver the daggers with her hammer. Well, Zhang was shocked. The audience was glad that they had finally started moving. Qinyun said that he suddenly felt that it would be too boring if everything went on like this and they could warm up. The judge said that it was Qinyun who finally made his move. Tekui assumed that he was provoking them, and the protagonist realized that he had seen through his bluff. If only he could really use the punch 3 more times. He had to stand in front and prepare to meet the enemy. He realized that the battle was finally about to begin. Kaizai asked Qinyun if he had really taken the first step. Wudong asked if they should make a move too. Kai told him to take his time and let them fight. They would wait for an opportunity before making a move. He has never served anyone. Qinyun, Hu Wang and Zhao Liang ran forward. Qin said not to wait for them, they're on their own. The two ran forward, and Hu Wang jumped and was right above them, and Ikai immediately thought that this was not good. Qin noted that he thought it was a bluff and ordered Hu Wang to kill her. He grabbed 2 axes and swung them and said to leave it to him. The protagonist looked at me with serious eyes. The Empress also tensed up and said the protagonist's name in her head. Hu Wang stepped on a trap. The protagonist only managed to say goodbye to him, and he was surprised. Immediately, he flew back and started screaming. People realized that Hu Wang had been thrown out, and the guy was surprised by how the traps ended up in the arena. The other clan heads were angry and asked if there was some kind of agreement this year and why he didn't tell them. The blonde panicked and replied that he had just found out too, and assured that they had not set any traps. Otherwise, how could the disciples of their sect step on them first? The clan masters think that all this is for a reason. They thought Zhang Lan did it, but he thought it cost him 30 points. Zhao Liang shouted that the protagonist was shameless and set traps. Tekui slapped him on the back and said that with his virtue, he still has the courage to judge others. Ichai used her techniques on Ken and he had to ask Kaizai if he was still busy. Immediately, Ikai's ears started to hurt. The night owl began to emit sound waves, and Kaizai and Wudong ran forward saying that this Zhang Lan was very evil. First you need to kill the blind woman, and then deal with the short-legged girl. From his words, the flow began to get angry. Kai and Wu ran to Ikai and he said that she was as resilient as he was. Immediately, she let her strength into them and they flew back. Ikai put on her glasses and became sighted. The protagonist said that she beat them up. The hour of victory weighed directly on their side. Kai's eye was injured and didn't know if she was really seeing. Immediately, Ikai began to beat Kai and Wu quickly with her feet. Qin shouted at him to beware of her traps and Zhao Liang understood him. He took off his clothes, his muscles increased in size and he began to laugh. He was running very fast forward. Immediately traps appeared out of the ground and he was surprised. The bamboo sticks hit his body and broke. He started laughing and said that these bamboo poles could only tickle him and asked what else he had. Immediately, another iron stick appeared, which hit him right in the face. Qin was surprised with this sound. Zhao was in a lot of pain and he thought it was an iron bamboo. It hit him in the face and knocked out all his teeth. The protagonist noted that there were 2 more left. Qin started to get angry and shouted whether he would finish at all or not and threw the daggers. The protagonist immediately took out a shield and defended himself from the daggers. Qin was surprised that the shield was so big and did not understand where he got it from. The protagonist pulled his arm out of the shield and threw something. It was a callista with bolts. The protagonist noted that he himself wanted to fight with a hidden weapon and smiled maliciously. Qin started running away and shouted that it wasn't a concealed weapon at all. Night Owl struck with his spear and smashed the protagonist's weapon. Tekui noted that this guy had made his move. Al said Zhang used so many tricks, but why would he slow down? After all, he doesn't have the opportunity to use yesterday's 3-punch technique. He asked if he was right. The protagonist realized that he was not so stupid. He secretly observed his shortcomings. The Empress understood that Zhang Lan could no longer attack, but she did not know why. Night Owl noted that it was not difficult to dodge Qinyun's knives, but he decided to hide behind a shield. It can be seen that not only can he not use his technique, he cannot use even the simplest movements. He added that it was time to put an end to this farce. The system reported that the cooling has been completed and the divine body can be charged and used. The protagonist was happy with this information because his fists are already itching.